This is fascinating. If you came tonight to hear this, it was already worth it. The Baal Shem Tov, listen to this. There was a couple that lived in Europe. The couple was known to be the great Machnise Oreach. Their Hachnasat Orchim was off the charts. Every day they had guests in the house, and Shabbat, wow, Shabbat, their table was Seudat Melech. They would have guests galore. They would bring home from shul anyone who needed a place. Everybody knew this family, this couple, their house was always open to guests. But in spite of the fact that they did amazing Hachnasat Orchim for many, many years, they were never zochet to have children. They were childless for almost 15 years. But that didn't stop them. Their Hachnasat Orchim was off the charts. Listen to this. After they had the people over on Shabbat, they would insist that the guests would stay over Saturday night. They would give them a big goodbye meal Sunday morning, like a breakfast. And they would actually send them off, their guests, into the week with a tremendous feeling of chizuk. And then upon leaving, they would turn to their guests and hand each guest a little sack of gold coins to give them some money to kick off the week in a good way. They took this Hachnasat Orchim to new levels. It was off the charts what they did. But in spite of the fact of 15 years of the greatest Hachnasat Orchim, they still remained childless. One Shabbat, they were in the middle of the Shabbat meal Friday night. And this was wee hours into the night. They were singing, Zemirot, Pizmonim. And just then there was a knock on the door. So the husband jumps up and he runs to the door. And he opens the door. And there he sees a guy, a Jew, completely not religious. And it was very clear that the guy just got off his horse, just that moment finished traveling from a different town. It was absolutely clear, as the guy himself just said, I just came from the other town, that this guy's Mehalel Shabbat. But it made no difference to this husband. He turned to him and said, come on in, my friend. You look hungry. Meanwhile, all the guests on the table looking at each other. Look at this guy. Mehalel Shabbat? He lets in a Mehalel Shabbat to his house? But wait. Not only did he let him in, he brought him to the front of the table. He sat him next to the Baal Habayit. He gave him honor. He turned to his wife, quickly, bring another setting. Bring him from the food that he already missed in the meal. I want him to start from the beginning. So he'll get all the stages of what we put out tonight in tonight's meal. I want him to get the entree, and then the salads, and then the cantaloupe. I don't want him to go straight to I want to open his appetite, and then give him the main meal. The guests are looking at each other like, why is he giving this guy so much kavod, caring so much about him? He's Mehalel Shabbat. Mehalel Shabbat. Certain areas in halacha has a din, God forbid, like a goy. Why is he giving him such honor? The guy's like a goy. And the guests started to mumble under their breath. And they were very upset. Just then, the Baal Habayit walks up to the guests and whispers to them so that he shouldn't hear, this is my guest, this is my house. It makes no difference to me the religious level of a Jew. Every Jew is invited to my home. This is my Hachnasat Orchim, and this is the way I am doing it. When they heard the strong tone of the Baal Habayit, they backed off, they stopped mumbling, they stopped bickering, and they let it go. Shabbat went on, and this Mehalel Shabbat guest was given literally the honor of royalty. The next meal he sat him again in the front. Gave him maybe more than everybody else. And then the next meal as well. And then that night, he turned to the guy and he said to him, I insist, like all my other guests, you stay over Saturday night. Sunday morning, I make a big breakfast to send off my guests. And I also give them a sachet of gold coins. Please stay. And the guests are looking at each other. Why is he taking care of this guy? Look at this guy. Nobody's in nothing. The next morning, everybody's about to leave. The Baal Habayit goes around. He hugs each one of his guests. He thanks them for coming. He tells them that they did him a favor. You know those amazing people? That they actually convince you that you did them the favor. And then he hands them that little satchel of gold coins. And then the last guy, he comes to the Mahalel Shabbat and he gives him a hug. And he looks him in the eye. And with such warmth, he says to him, thank you. If you're ever around, no matter when, no matter what time, my house is open to you. And here's the gold coins. The man takes the gold coins and smiles. And then Mahalel Shabbat looks at the husband and says, I want to tell you something. I am Eliyahu Hanavi. And they sent me from Shamayim to test you. They sent me from Shamayim to find out if your Hachnasat Orchim was for any Jew, or maybe you had a limit to only your type of Jews. And I want to tell you something. You passed the test. Sometimes we got to ask this question to ourselves. Are we all about showing the favor and a goodwill and warmth to the people that come off to us as my type of Jew? Are we only nice to the people that come off in our eyes as someone that's my type of Jew? This guy was a sinner. Says Eliyahu Navi, I came to you as a Mahalel Shabbat, and you didn't bat an eyelash. Banim atem l'Hashem Elokechem. I wanted to see what your Hachnasat Orchim was really about. And now we see in heaven that there was no limitations. You have a love for every single Jew. You didn't judge me. You didn't jump to conclusions. You weren't bickering. You weren't murmuring when you knew that I came in Mahalel Shabbat. No. You opened your arms, you put me by the table, and you treated me literally like a family member. He looks the husband in the eye and he says to him, you're going to have a child this year. And this child is going to light up the entire world. That's how the world was zocheh to the great Baal Shem Tov. That was the baby that was born that year. Rabbi Israel Baal Shem Tov. And these were the parents of the Baal Shem Tov that was zocheh to Gilui Eliyahu Hanavi. Why? What did they do? What did they do? What did they do? Did they save the lives of a city? Did they go and build the yeshiva of thousands of students? No, they did one thing. One thing. They didn't judge another Jew. And because of that, they were zochet to Gilui Eliyahu. They were zochet to be the parents, to bring no one less than the greatest of the great Baal Shem Tov into the world. Don't judge. They didn't judge. They were nice to someone who wasn't religious. We push so many people away only because at our first knee-jerk reaction, they don't look like our type of Jew. We push so many away. Eliyahu was knocking on your door at that moment. If we would have just been Mikalev, that guy, that young lady, might not have been my type. But there is no type. There's only one type. There's only a Jew. So we got to ask ourselves, do you love Jews? Or do you love your type of Jews? And when we walk out tonight, the Kabbalah has to be, there's no longer two categories of Jews in my world. Ve'hevedan et kol ha'adam lekaf zechut. I see the good. And that power is a power of blessing that brought children into the world as great as the Baal Shem Tov, and actually opened up the eyes of good to even Gilui Eliyahu Hanavi. Now those are big blessings. Wow.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.